Something big is brewing around the league, and if you're paying attention to the signals behind the scenes, it's getting harder to ignore what might be coming next for New England. There's a growing sense that a major move could be on the horizon, and it all starts with a name that continues to circulate in conversations across the NFL. A.J. Brown is still officially part of Philadelphia's roster, but the tone coming out of that organization has been interesting, to say the least. Every time leadership is asked about him, the response feels carefully worded, almost like they're holding the line publicly while exploring options privately. And when you really break it down, the situation starts to make more sense. The Eagles have built a roster that's loaded at the wide receiver position, arguably more than they actually need given their offensive identity. This is a team that leans heavily on the run game, and having two elite number one receivers can sometimes create more complications than advantages. It's not about talent, because A.J. Brown is unquestionably one of the most dominant wideouts in the game. The issue is more about balance, opportunity, and how resources are allocated under the salary cap. If you're managing a roster at that level, tough decisions have to be made. Moving a player like Brown would free up significant financial flexibility, and when you factor in his contract, his experience level, and even moments in the past where he's expressed frustration about involvement, it starts to paint a clearer picture. Wide receivers want the ball. That's just the nature of the position, and when targets are spread thin in a system that doesn't prioritize the pass, those frustrations can grow over time. Now shift the focus to New England, and suddenly things get very interesting. The Patriots are in a position where adding a true number one receiver could completely change the dynamic of their offense. There's already a foundation being built, and bringing in a player of Brown's caliber would accelerate that process in a big way. It's not just about adding talent. It's about sending a message that this team is ready to compete at a higher level again. The real question isn't whether a move like this makes sense, because it absolutely does. The question is timing. Do the Patriots push aggressively to get something done before the draft, potentially giving up premium picks to secure their guy early? Or do they play the long game, waiting until financial implications shift later in the offseason, possibly allowing them to negotiate a better deal? That's where things get complicated, because waiting also opens the door for other teams to jump into the mix. And then there's the layer that makes this whole situation even more intriguing. There have already been quiet discussions between coaching staffs about joint practices this offseason. Imagine the scenario where these teams meet on the field in a practice setting while trade talks are still lingering in the background. It would add an unusual dynamic, but at the same time, both organizations operate with a level of confidence and professionalism that suggests they wouldn't let outside noise disrupt their preparation. While all of this unfolds, another storyline has been gaining traction involving one of the most dominant defensive players in the league. There was a moment where it felt like the door might open, even just slightly, for a potential blockbuster involving Myles Garrett. Contract adjustments always trigger speculation, especially when you're talking about a player of that magnitude. Naturally, people started connecting dots, wondering if this could lead to something bigger. But as of now, the message coming from Cleveland is clear. They view Garrett as a cornerstone, someone who represents the identity of the franchise. And when you think about what it would actually take to move a player like that, the price quickly becomes overwhelming. We're talking about a level of compensation that very few teams would realistically consider, especially when you're trying to build sustainably for the future. That doesn't completely shut the door, though. Situations in the NFL can change quickly, especially when teams face uncertainty at key positions. Cleveland is still trying to figure out its long-term direction at quarterback, and if things don't stabilize, it could eventually force them into difficult decisions. But for now, any talk of Garrett wearing a different uniform feels more like speculation than something imminent. At the same time, the landscape within the division is shifting in ways that could work in New England's favor. Familiar faces are reappearing in unexpected places, and quarterback situations across rival teams are far from settled. That kind of instability creates opportunity, especially for a team that's trying to climb back into contention. If the Patriots can capitalize on those moments, stack wins where they're expected to, and continue building momentum, the path forward starts to look a lot more promising. And it's not just about what happens on game day. Behind the scenes, the organization is making moves to modernize and elevate every aspect of its operation. The opening of a new, state-of-the-art training facility marks a significant step in that direction. This isn't just about aesthetics or comfort. It's about creating an environment where players can maximize their development, recover more efficiently, and perform at the highest possible level. That kind of investment speaks volumes about where this organization sees itself going. When you build infrastructure like that, it's not just for show. It's a signal to players, coaches, and the rest of the league that the standard is being raised again. For a team with a legacy like New England, that matters. There's history here, there's expectation, and now there's a clear effort to align the future with those same championship principles. For younger players coming into the system, that environment can be a game changer. Development in the NFL isn't just about talent. It's about preparation, recovery, and having access to the best possible resources. When everything is aligned, from coaching to facilities, you start to see players take real leaps. And that's exactly what the Patriots are counting on as they continue shaping this roster into something that can compete consistently. At the center of that transformation is the belief that this team is closer than people think. It's easy to look at last season and focus on the record, but internally, there's a different perspective. There were flashes, moments where things started to click, especially with the emergence of a young quarterback who showed he can handle the pressure of this stage. Growth at that position changes everything, and if that trajectory continues, it opens the door for the entire offense to evolve. That's where a potential move for a top-tier receiver becomes even more impactful. Pairing a developing quarterback with a proven playmaker creates a level of stability that can accelerate progress across the board. It gives the offense an identity, something defenses have to account for on every snap. And when that happens, it doesn't just elevate one player, it lifts the entire unit. Meanwhile, the competition within the division is going through its own transitions, and not all of them are smooth. There are teams dealing with uncertainty at quarterback, others adjusting to new systems, and some trying to figure out how to balance roster changes without losing their edge. In a league where consistency is everything, those moments of instability can create openings, and New England is in a position to take advantage if they play it right. You can already see how the schedule might start to shape expectations. There are matchups that, on paper, look favorable, especially against teams that are still trying to establish their identity. But the reality of the NFL is that nothing is guaranteed. Even games that seem winnable require execution, discipline, and the ability to adapt in real time. That's something this team is still working to refine. What stands out, though, is the mindset being built behind the scenes. There's a clear emphasis on accountability, on doing the small things right, and on creating a culture where competition drives improvement every single day. That doesn't happen overnight, but when it starts to take hold, you can feel the difference. It shows up in practices, in preparation, and eventually, on Sundays. Another layer to all of this is how the front office is approaching roster construction. There's a balance between patience and urgency that has to be managed carefully. You want to build for sustained success, but you also recognize windows when they open. If the opportunity to bring in a player who can change the trajectory of your team presents itself, you have to seriously consider it. That's why the situation with A.J. Brown continues to draw so much attention. It's not just about adding a receiver. It's about making a statement move that shifts perception. It tells the locker room that the organization is committed to winning now, not just developing for the future. And in a competitive league, that kind of message can resonate in a powerful way. At the same time, discipline in decision-making remains crucial. Overcommitting resources, especially in terms of draft capital, can have long-term consequences. Every move has a ripple effect, and the best organizations are the ones that understand how to manage those risks while still being aggressive when it counts. New England has been through every possible scenario over the years, and that experience plays a role in how they approach moments like this. As the offseason continues to unfold, there's a sense that things are building towards something significant. Conversations are happening, evaluations are ongoing, and the direction of this team is being shaped in real time. Whether it leads to a major trade or a series of smaller moves that collectively strengthen the roster, the intention is clear. This is not a team content with staying in the middle of the pack. And when you combine that ambition with improved infrastructure, emerging talent, and a division that's anything but stable, the foundation is there for a shift. It won't be easy, and it won't happen by accident. But the pieces are starting to come together in a way that feels different from recent seasons. And as this momentum builds, attention naturally shifts back to how this team will handle high-pressure moments when the season begins. Because at the end of the day, potential only means so much if it doesn't translate into execution on the field. The Patriots are clearly laying the groundwork, but the next step is proving that all these changes, all these investments, and all these strategic decisions can come together when it matters most. That's where the true test begins. There's also a growing sense of urgency that can't be ignored. Not a desperate kind of urgency, but one rooted in opportunity. The league evolves quickly, and windows can open and close faster than expected. When you look around and see rivals dealing with uncertainty, it creates a moment where a well-prepared team can make a significant leap. New England seems to understand that this is one of those moments, and the way they approach the next few months could define their trajectory for years. At the same time, leadership within the locker room will play a critical role in shaping how far this group can go. Talent is essential, but cohesion and accountability often separate good teams from great ones. The Patriots have always been known for their structure and discipline, and there are signs that those elements are being reinforced with this new wave of players. If that culture fully takes hold, it can become one of their biggest strengths moving forward. Another factor that can't be overlooked is adaptability. The NFL is a league where adjustments happen constantly, whether it's week to week or even within a single game. Teams that can evolve, that can identify weaknesses and address them quickly, are the ones that stay competitive deep into the season. For New England, developing that flexibility will be just as important as any roster addition they make. You also have to consider how expectations might start to shift if things click early. A strong start can change the narrative around a team almost overnight, building confidence internally while also forcing opponents to take notice. Suddenly, games that once looked manageable for other teams become real challenges. That psychological edge can be just as valuable as any tactical advantage on the field. And all of this circles back to one central idea. This team is in the middle of a transition, but it's a transition with direction. There's a plan being executed step by step, and while there are still questions to be answered, the overall picture is becoming clearer. The coming stretch will be crucial, not just in terms of wins and losses, but in defining the identity of this new era in New England. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to Patriots Hub and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest updates on our New England Patriots. And don't be shy, share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers out of Foxborough are beginning to grow louder, and the latest rumors swirling around the New England locker room suggest tensions may be rising between rookie quarterback Drake MAYE and head coach Mike VRABEL following what insiders are calling a defensive humiliation during a recent team session. According to sources close to the situation, the young signal caller was visibly frustrated after facing relentless pressure from the Patriots defense, a unit reportedly dialed up to full intensity under VRABEL's direction. What was intended as a competitive practice may have crossed a line in the eyes of MAYE, who allegedly confronted the coach in a moment described as heated but controlled. He went hard, maybe too hard, a source claimed MAYE said in the aftermath, hinting that the quarterback felt the defensive schemes were excessive given the context. While such internal clashes are not uncommon in high-level football environments, the tone of this exchange has sparked speculation about a deeper philosophical divide. Some within the organization reportedly view VRABEL's approach as a deliberate attempt to accelerate MAYE's development by exposing him to worst-case scenarios early. Others, however, believe the intensity risks undermining the confidence of a young quarterback still adjusting to the professional stage. Observers have also noted body language shifts during recent team activities, with MAYE appearing more animated on the sidelines and less inclined to engage in casual dialogue with coaching staff. Whether this signals lingering frustration or simply competitive fire remains unclear. Despite the buzz, no official comment has been made by the team, leaving room for interpretation and speculation. In a league where internal dynamics often shape on-field performance, even minor disagreements can quickly evolve into larger narratives. For now, it remains just that, a rumor. But if there is any truth to the tension, it could mark an early test of leadership for both a rookie quarterback trying to assert himself and a head coach known for demanding standards. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our New England Patriots, be sure to subscribe to Patriots Hub and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.